War Chest. This is a game that is pretty heavy. It has been recently published by AEG, and it is a game that is inspired by medieval warfare. It is thematic and yet abstract at the same time. As you will see, the play area, the components, and most of the rules and mechanics are pretty abstract, there is no doubt about that. And yet the units that you have here and that the players will use to fight against each other, trying to take control of key objectives. Those units do work in different ways that have a certain degree of thematic flavor that I found, well, pretty impressive when you consider how abstract everything else is. Also, what is interesting about this design, the players will field the different combinations of units in each game, and there is great variety there. You will never use all of the units that are available in the game, so you will have different combinations, different synergies of units with different weaknesses and different strengths that operate individually and again operate in combination with other units that you have there. Because playing with 4 units or playing with other 4 units against a certain combination of enemy units will present completely different tactical problems and situations. It's a game that doesn't have dice, but it has a random element in the fact that you will use a bag to select tokens from the bag to activate your units, but then also that random element is then balanced by a decisional element because you will manipulate what goes in the bag. So this is just to give you a general sense of what chess is like and how it works. Now let's have a closer look and learn about war chess more in detail. This is the board of the game. It is a mounted board, very simple, but also clean, pleasant, and very readable. These 2 darker areas here are not used in the 2-player game, which is basically the main game. Then you have some special areas here, which are control areas. Each player will have a set of control tokens. 2 are placed on the board by each player at the beginning of the game, and the job of the players is to maneuver the units around to eliminate units of the opponent, but not for the sake of it, although that's quite fun. Rather to make space, to make room for more control tokens. The first player to have 6 control tokens on the board is the winner of the game. So in order to do so, again, you will need units, you will need fighters. The type of units that you receive will be decided by these cards. Basically, each card corresponds to a different type of units. At the beginning of the game, you shuffle these cards together and you assign 4 to each player. Each game, each player will use 4 different types of units. Of course, or alternately, you can do something different, which is you can choose to simply draw 8 cards, place them in a row face up, and then players alternate choosing cards, so they have a little more control. Let's suppose that one way or the other, this player has received these 4 cards. Now, these cards, these units, each is associated with a set of these absolutely beautiful and very pleasant to manipulate tokens. And different units have different numbers of tokens in them. Some units are a little larger, some not so much. Just so very nice, readable, clean, but very pleasant. Also, each player will have a special token, and we'll talk about that later. So again, here we have a player that has crossbowmen, which are here. Then we have knight. We have archers. Oh, this is somebody really with a lot of capability for range attacks, and cavalry. Now, you take your units, you take all of the discs as we saw, then you place those cards in a line in front of you. You take the tokens for each unit, we said that. Then each player also has a bag in which you will place at the beginning of the game your special token plus 2 tokens from each stack. And of course the opponent will do exactly the same. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Then you draw 3 tokens secretly. 3 tokens, well, the opponent sees that you're doing it, also they do the same. It's just you don't show them what these tokens are. And then players will simply alternate going back and forth. There's a player that will control the initiative token, which is not this one though, although it does look like that one. There's some double-sided. A player will control the initiative token. That is the player that will go first once both players have played their 3 tokens and they draw from the bag again. It's, deck building games, this is a bag building game. That is, during the game you will use game effects to take units from your supply, to recruit units from your supply. This is your supply, and you place them in your discard pile, and then when it's time for you to draw from the bag and you don't have enough from the bag, you take your discard pile and you dump them all in. So like in deck building games, when you want to recruit something, it goes in your discard pile first and then it is added to your pool of available resources. Now, at the beginning, the game can feel a little overwhelming because there are just so many things that you can do with these tokens. Yes, there's a play rate that's at the end of the rulebook that tells you all those things, but precisely because it's so detailed, it can be a little difficult to reference. I've been playing the game with my daughter Amelia, who is 8, and so I had to make this other beautiful, elegant play rate, which however has really worked. So these are the actions that you can perform with your tokens based on pretty much what you need to do to trigger that action. These actions are triggered by placing a token on the board, these by discarding a token and then activating the matching unit on the board, and this one by placing a token face down in your discard pile. Actions that let you place units on the board, pretty simple. Deploy, which is you place a unit, a token on one of your control spaces that doesn't have a unit. You can always only have a unit per space. Also, you can only have a specimen of a type of unit on the board at the same time. So, for example, I could not have 2 cavalry units on the board. Another action that you do by adding tokens to the board is to bolster. That is, you place a token on top of an existing unit. It has to be a matching token, and now that unit is much harder to destroy. However, remember, I started with only 2 of those tokens. Now that unit is very hard to destroy, but it is also impossible to move for me because there are no tokens of that kind in the bag, and I do need to use tokens of that kind to activate it. So maybe now it's time for me to recruit. This is a face down action. Pretty much I take any token from my hand and I discard it face down. The opponent doesn't have to see what that is, and then I take again one of my tokens and I put it there, and that's how I recruit. Yay, now I have this token here in my hand in a later turn. Now, actions that I perform by discarding and then activating a matching unit. Very simple. To move. Usually to move is simply you move your unit 1 space into 1 adjacent space without entering areas that are occupied by friendly or enemy units. You can also attack. Suppose that is an enemy unit. I'm starting adjacent to that unit and I activate my cavalry to attack them. Well, pretty simple. If you use the attack action and you're adjacent to an enemy unit, unless there is a rule that tells you differently, you remove it. As simple as that. Or I should say, you remove a disc from it. So if it's a regular unit, it is eliminated by a single successful attack. If it is a bolstered unit, well, you remove a disc and then you have to keep going with later attacks. So the attack action is pretty simple. Discard a matching unit, say I'm activating that unit for attack, and you remove an enemy unit which is adjacent to it. You can discard a matching token to establish control. If you are in an area which is a control area, then you spend, again, activate a unit, declare you are performing a control action, and now you control that area. You can also use the control area to remove a control token of the opponent when your activated unit is sitting on it and replace it with one of yours. Then you can, another thing that you can do, of course you can only do one of them, is discard a token to execute a tactic with the matching unit. And sometimes the tactics are similar to the main actions, such as move and attack, but, well, with some differences. For example, usually, remember, I can discard a token to move or to attack with a unit. But the tactic of the cavalry is that I can move and then attack as a single action. So that's pretty powerful, that's pretty tough, and that's great. Also, the diagram here shows me that I don't have to move and then attack in a straight line, which is something that actually another unit needs to do. The Lancers, for example, can move up to 2 and then attack, but can only move and attack in a straight line. So units have just different abilities and things. Some units have quote-unquote conditions, which is they're not exactly tactics, but just rules you have to take into account. For example, the knight can only be attacked by units that are bolstered. The pikeman, if you attack the pikeman when you're adjacent, you die. You still kill the pikeman as normal, but you die. The archer, my daughter Amelia's favorite unit. The tactic is to attack a unit that is exactly 2 spaces away. Yes, you can fire over the head of intervening units, but the archer does not have the attack action, can only attack by using this action. So sometimes if an archer is on the board, you want to move fast and get very close to them because they can really figure out what to do at that point. Crossbowmen are not ranged units, but just to give you a sense, but works differently. This time can attack only in a straight line, and cannot attack over intervening units. However, the fact is that does not have the limitation that the tactic is the only attack. So a crossbowman, again, can use a range attack, but could also attack normally when adjacent, because again, the tactic is not the only thing. And then pretty much so many other rules are about so many other unique abilities of the units are about breaking specific rules, such as footmen. Yes, you can have 2 of them on the board. And then the scout, you don't have to deploy in a controlled area, you have more freedom there. The berserker, you can bolster them and then you can spend bolstering discs to make them perform extra actions. So pretty much they charge their batteries for part of the game and then they just go and destroy everything, etc, etc. So this is what you can do by discarding matching token. Move or attack or establish control or use the tactic. 3 more actions. You can discard a token face down, put it into your discard pile face down. To do what? To steal initiative from the opponent, and so next time the players draw 3 tokens, you'll be the first player to spend one of those 3. To recruit, we talked about that. Take one of your tokens in the supply and put it in your discard pile. The unit you're discarding is face down, so does not have to match, or you can spend a token to pass, because passing again still requires some resources. This is how it works. Keep drawing 3 tokens at a time, spending them one after the other, alternating in one of these ways. A lot of choices here, a little bit of burden of choice at the beginning. First player to have 6 tokens on the board is the winner of the game. And of course, here I'm talking about control tokens, not military tokens. Once I read the rules and I started playing it, I knew that I would like this game. And then every game that I played confirmed that. I really like what I see here. I like the general idea, I like the implementation, I like the execution, pretty much from every point of view, from mechanics to components, with the exception of, I think, maybe a more synthetic play rate would have helped, and maybe some passages in the rules I found a little bit fuzzy the first time or 2 that I read them, but minor things. Once I got the general idea and I started playing it, I started having fun almost immediately. To me, a good game is a series of interesting decisions, and this is a game that gives you a ton of those. Maybe for the casual player, even too many for the first turn or 2, it will feel overwhelming, but then you start getting into a certain rhythm, a certain certain sequences of actions that will seem more profitable, certain chains of, well, I need to do this, deploy, bolster, but then I need to activate, etc., etc., etc. But you're doing this, of course, while your opponent is doing the same. So it is a dynamic environment in which you will not fall into an algorithm that will always be the same, because, well, you have to react to what the opponent is doing, and also you have to react to what Lady Luck is allowing you to draw from your bag, while without at the same time feeling that you're completely out of control, precisely because of all of the agency that you have in your decision about what goes in the bag. So very interesting combination of elements here. The bag building element of the game is really fun. It's really fun to implement, and you keep working on it. It's not like, well, I have a plan, I'm gonna put those 3 coins and then that's gonna work. It's about planning rather than plans. It's about planning as a constant evolving process, because I want to get a lot of units of a certain kind on the board, and then a situation arises in which I actually realize that I need, rather than but I meant a lot of tokens of the same type, that is by bolstering them. But then a situation arises and I decide that instead I want to activate that unit a lot of times. Then those tokens that I plan to use for bolstering, I use them for activating or for doing something else. A situation arises where I realize that actually you're moving close to one of my control tokens, and then if this token that I plan to use to activate a certain unit, I use it to recruit another unit there, and then maybe I immediately, with my next action, use the unit to attack you. Well, surprise, that's gonna be not particularly fun for you. And in a sense, it's gonna be interesting because it presents you with a new problem to solve. But that is gonna feel rewarding to you, as you not just pulled off that trick there, but you were able to devise it from a strategy that maybe you have planned as different. So what I like here is that you have different ranges of decisions. You have the operational, heck, maybe even strategic level, as I'm trying to decide what is going to go in my bag next turn or 2 turns from now. What kind of units are going to be on the battlefield? Am I going to have a lot of different units on the battlefield that then don't activate all that often because my bag has a lot of activation tokens in it? Or am I going to put an emphasis on 2 types of units that are then going to activate more often because most of the tokens that I have in the bag refer to them? In that sense, you have a strategic design. But then going back to the fact that planning is a constant evolving process, you have the tactical element in which, again, if like, oh, wait a second, if I deviate from that plan, I can take care of this opportunity. Oh, wait a second, I need to deviate from my original plan because this emergency has presented itself. I not realize how much danger my royal guard was in. So very different, very interesting elements here. So really nice. I liked all these elements. As I told you, I knew that I would like this game almost from turn 1 or turn 2. What I did not expect, pleasant surprise, is my daughter Amelia, who is 8, would fall in love with it. She is a rabid fan of this game. I expected her to enjoy it. But who knew? Now she fell in love with some troops. She wants to always play with those, but combining them with different units. She likes, well, pretty much all of the things that I mentioned earlier. Maybe she wouldn't articulate her thoughts in the same way. And if I may say so, she's not all that good. She's not all that good at implementing the game because, again, it requires some thinking. And so sometimes I'm holding back a little bit and not playing as effectively as I think I could, and that creates a little bit of balance. And yet, even though she has lost most of the games that she has played with me, she still wants to come back to the game, which is not the same thing that happened with other games. She's like, I lost once, I'm done. I only like winning the game, not necessarily playing the game. She really likes playing war chess, which is to say, yes, an 8-year-old may not be very proficient at the game, but it is a game that has enough depth that an adult that enjoys strategy can definitely find a lot of reasons of interest for the game. And yet at the same time, an 8-year-old can still play the game, can still grok the general mechanics, although again maybe the strategy will be a little bit blurred in their mind, but even that young they can play the game. And to me this is quite remarkable, a game that in fact a child could play and adults can play too and have a lot of fun with it. War Chest, great production, really good gameplay, captivating game, and one that we have found quite addictive. My daughter and I have been playing a lot, one game after the other. We keep playing just one more game, and then the whole afternoon has been spent playing War Chest, which of course is a really good thing. War Chest, we like it a lot. Give it a try.